Hello everyone, it's your old pal Living Dead, and I'm not back with another WOD playthrough. Well, I kind of am. I'm actually here with the first episode of my Mapping Diaries series, playlist, I guess you want to call it. I'm going to be taking a look at a map that I made and just kind of talking through the development process of it, explain my rationale behind decisions that I made and possible lessons that I learned. And maybe if it gets some traction, that can be a thing that kind of happens a little bit more regularly in the future. I actually did this a year and a half ago, give or take, with one of the maps that I made named Stygian Anguish. It was the second map that I ever made. It was in UDMF format, and it featured almost exclusive use of OTEX. This is the first map that I've ever made. It goes by the name of Malleable Intent. I can explain that name in a little bit. We are playing this map on Ultraviolence. I believe I may have only... I think I've only tweaked the balance for Ultraviolence. I'm playing in Jeezy Doom on Boom Strict compatibility. This is a Boom map, although a lot of... It doesn't really take advantage of most of the Boom features, other than the fact that, you know, limit removing and everything. Right off the bat, I'll go ahead and tell you the biggest lesson that I learned from this map. I made this MIDI myself. And this would be a great MIDI for a map that's about 5 to 10 minutes long, not for one that is 45 minutes long. So just bear that in mind. That is my biggest pro tip that I can give to anybody who wants to make their own maps, is make sure you pick a MIDI that you can stand to listen to for the duration of the map. If you pick a super grungy, hard rock, distorted guitar song, that map cannot be very long. Most people will be sick to death of it by the time they finish it, unless it's like a power ballad, or not a power ballad, but like a prog rock 20-minute ballad type of song, which there aren't that many unless you're using Jimmy MIDIs in your WOD. So anyways, yeah, that's my biggest takeaway. So as you can see kind of first right off the bat here, I make the player initiate a trap to pick up the shotgun. And I'll explain the reason behind that. Basically, I wanted the player to have a choice of going this direction, like I came here. I think I almost always go this direction by default, just for some reason. Or the player can go to the north here from the starting room. If you hit this switch, it opens these gates here. The reason for that is purely because it's fun to hit switches and open doors. No other reason. I did put a switch on this side that has the exact same effect, and the reason behind that is that you can actually get to this room from the other direction. So this is a non-linear map, and it is kind of the spiritual sequel to a map that I made for Doom 2016 Snap Max, if you can believe it. Snap Maps. That was a modular level editing app, I guess, or thing, if you have not experienced it. And it used prefab assets, so like room shapes and other types of things, and you can click maps together. And so I had a layout that this is very heavily inspired by, although bears almost no resemblance to. This is the first secret you can come across. If you activate this little computer thing here, you can come here and pick up the Berserk, some good old punching power. You can also come in here for the second secret of the map and get some health bonuses and just a little bit of extra ammunition. Now back to the original thing, so tying this together with the shotgun and everything, you could go one of two directions. You can go this direction, and actually this will circle back towards the other area if you go in this direction here. Or you could start off by going that direction and kind of wander around. And I wanted to give the player the choice to potentially have either the shotgun or the chain gun. I ran into a few problems where it was easy for people to miss this shotgun in play tests. So I actually tweaked this room quite a bit. I never quite got it where it's foolproof to see it. And that's part of the thing. You're never going to make it foolproof so that somebody will 100% be guaranteed to discover something that's not immediately from in front of them in the path. And even then, there are players who will test your ability to successfully telegraph stuff. But this was kind of the best compromise. Come in this room. Really, the key pressure to lead the player in this direction. It's just that having the pistol and fighting a bunch of imps is not a lot of fun. So hopefully the player looks here, sees a bunch of enemies up here, looks in this direction, sees the shotgun, sees that the shotgun is enclosed, and my thought process is that I hope that it makes the player think that they need to kind of figure out how to get that shotgun open, have this little aha moment with this switch that opens that, it triggers the trap. As to why it's designed that way, this is not the way I would like to do it, ideally, but just kind of in the service of having a non-linear tech base, I just kind of have this room with a little bit of a flow to it, a little bit of mini puzzle to explore, but it does contribute to a problem that this map has on the whole, which is too many switches-itis. So I'm going to go ahead and do the first save here. This room is the first major set piece. It is a mandatory destination. You have to go here. And the player is hopefully forced out into this room by resource constraints. Don't have a lot of shells. Need to fight some bad guys. There's a shell box down here to kind of help get started and to keep exploring. You'll run into a barrier here if you just try to skip this entire room, which is intended because you need to go that way. So I wanted to make the player have to fight some monsters in this area. As a whole, from a design philosophy, I don't like making very obvious and discrete arenas for my combat set pieces. I would prefer if I can make it so that things are a little bit more organic in how they occur and how combat unfolds in front of them. That's not always a possibility. And this room kind of suffers from a bit of designing it first and then trying to figure out how to place things in it second. I think a lot of Doom mappers do that. And if your need is inspiration, then it makes a lot of sense to start with the visuals because, most people are visually stimulated in one way or the other. But having the wherewithal to would not place a med kit where the player has to walk into it almost. That's another thing. Put it off to the side. Give them the option to pick it up or bypass it. But the anticipation of how would you, or I should say, the need to plan thing placement kind of in advance of making the layouts if you want a good combat arena. It's hard to do without a lot of experience. Most people don't do it that way when they get started. So this room is kind of a problem with that, or suffers from that problem for sure. As you can kind of see, it doesn't really amount to a whole lot. There's just some different kind of areas to kind of duck in and out of. But on the whole, I don't know that this area makes the most interesting use of the space that I created for it. So it is what it is. Do a little bit of touch up here. And I will say it's been a minute since I've played this map. I'm playing it blind, so I'm not going to be quite up to my, or not blind, but I haven't like run through this and practiced. So this is how you get the another secret. You have to hit that computer over there. The wall lowers behind this computer over here with a switch that you can shoot. Lowers this elevator here, and you can pick up the rocket launcher. This is a major boon to have before you actually get it properly in the map. So I wanted to make the secret pretty difficult to find. I wasn't satisfied with just this. That's a pretty obvious thing. But what I found by somebody playtesting the map is this also works to lower the switch. You don't have to hit this at all, because as soon as the hit scan bullet crosses the line def for the switch, it doesn't matter where vertically it is. It counts as having hit it, and so here you go. It lowers it no matter what you do. Lesson learned. There are better ways to hide secrets. Even if I had made the thing go all the way up to the top and completely obscure that texture. So you've probably noticed that there's been multiple times when I have had a limit of... and so by the way, that switch in this room lowers these bars here, or gets them out of the way, to allow for progress into a mandatory area. So you can go this way to continue progressing the map. Or there's another way you could have gone at the beginning. We're going to do that instead of progressing the map quite yet. Although I will say this is technically progress. You do need to go this way to beat the map. So here's this cool little outdoors area. And I want to say out of all the time that I spent on the map, I probably spent the most amount of time in this outdoors area. It was just such a pain in the ass to design it. I made and remade components of it half a dozen times each. And I like the way that it looks, but it was just so much effort because I largely did not know what I was doing, and I kept making a lot of silly mistakes about things. I find, and I'm sure you probably do too, that making large outdoor convincing buildings that don't look really boring is very hard. And the reason is because the textures repeat themselves so frequently that they just look very samey, very easily. So somehow I managed to kind of just sort of envision what this brown building in front of us looked like. And through several iterations of designing it, I kind of set on this steel girder. I don't know. I just wanted it to kind of look like an imposing fortress, like something that was just really wholly a machine and disinterested in you. I know that's a bit of an odd way to describe a building, but I wanted it to convey a certain attitude. I want the player to come across this building and see it and realize it's a destination. Hey, we got a blue door over here. And just kind of anticipate what's going to be in this building. So I knew I wanted the player to cross a poison pit. If you haven't guessed yet, then one of the challenges of this map is going to be to raise this bridge. We won't be doing that until we have got the blue key. We don't need to do it before we get the blue key, but we're going to get the blue key first. And I struggled a lot to get this to look like a nice little organic outdoors area, but it took me several iterations, and I finally got a cool little poison fall that I was happy with. This little thing that I just felt visually kind of reminded me of Stock Doom. And actually another secret, if you jump down here and come in this direction, what's that? Interesting, the blue key. Well, you can't get to it from here, but it's a neat way to kind of signpost to the player. Again, why are these switches here? Why is this designed this way? It's just because it's fun to open doors with switches. That's why. There's no real reason for it. I struggled a lot to kind of design this area and change the proportions over and over again. But I'm really happy with what I did. Stark use of the lighting. I wanted to make sure that most light sources behaved logically in the map. So this texture has a light on it. I wanted to make sure that the area gave off a light. And I wanted it to be kind of easy to see when you're in the poison, like, oh, there's a place I can go into that will hopefully get me out of this poison. So to get out, we go in the teleporter, and here we are. We go in this little room here. We can get the chainsaw and fight a couple of pinkies that are interested in ambushing. Some more detailing that I thought was really quaint when I made it. This area exists mostly to get you out of this poison in this other room. You can pick up the chainsaw here, you know. I don't know why, I just feel like something about the chainsaw being hidden like down in the poison kind of makes sense to me. So if you fall in here, and there's a reason why you might fall in there, you can get out by going through that hallway which leads you up to where the chainsaw was. I also wanted to make sure I did a little bit of detailing here. This was one of the first rooms that I made. It went through several iterations before I just settled on something that I really liked. I think originally this bridge may have been like a sharp angle. I think it took a while before I realized you could do curved lines in Doom Builder with the Shift C function, or Shift D, or whichever one it is. Same thing with these lamps here. Took me several iterations, and these are actually, that's a vertex, that's a vertex, that's a vertex, that's a vertex, so that the textures would line up and make a lot of sense. Oh, interesting. I missed the lamp here. And then I wanted to make sure that the lighting was realistic, so it comes out in a cone. I did a couple of layers of the lighting so that it can fade to the color of the rest of the room. This took so many iterations to do it. And I know that this is not that detailed in the grand scheme of things, but for me, it was very complicated. So here's one of the coolest things. This is where it feels like interesting like Half-Life type of progression, in the sense that you are just taking whatever path is available to you in the area, rather than it being designed as a level. There's this pipe here, which you'll notice that there's a health bonus. If you hit this switch, it cuts off the flow of the poison, and you can jump down into that pipe, which is part of the mandatory progression. First, we're going to go here, take this elevator up. This is the other side if you fall into the poison. I just wanted it to be a cool little like utility closet. So some of my thought process in designing this is definitely inspired by Doom 2016 and Doom 3, and just the little like closets and all kinds of mechanical things tucked into the facility. So you jump in here, but I thought that was a cool little thing, like just imagining there being like a utility closet with some supplies in it in case like some worker needed to work on in the poison area. You have to come out here, this pipe outlets into this larger room, and I really did want to kind of capture this feeling of discovering this whole other area of the base that you've only got hints at that exist. This is where that pipe outlets, and this is how you get the blue key. I wanted to make sure that there was the way that the player could see where the blue key was, but I really wanted this area to feel very disconnected from the rest of the map. It feels like you should not have actually made your way here. Here's a little detailing that I was proud of, these little grates. And I apologize, I'm not mouse looking down. I disabled mouse look in the map info.txt, and so it's not possible to do. So to get through this area, you're kind of trapped in here. It makes you do something specific. Open this door, hit these switches here. Oh cool, the chain gun. So this area is balanced as if you have the chain gun and do not have the shotgun, although it works equally as well if you have both. But you'll notice that there is a favoritism towards bullets over shells in terms of replenishment. And this room actually is something that used boom scripting. So you hit the switch, it opens these up. A voodoo doll elsewhere in the map will cross a line that after a few seconds opens this wall here, so that it's a two-stage ambush. This is not actually the same trigger. And I can't remember the specific reason for it. I think I did want it to be a delayed timing. Here's another secret. Grab the rad suit. Rad suit is a bit of a hint at how to get to the next secret. Jump down into the poison. And there's my homage to E1M7. You'll notice the fleshy growths that bleed poison, or bleed blood into the poison. I like the body humor type of stuff you can accomplish with the Doom engine, and so I leaned into it. I wanted it to be like a corrupted part of the base, another reason why you can't just get here through other means. But we have a similar pipe to this side here, except it's completely grown over with flesh, and instead of dripping acid, it drips blood into the area. After having hit this switch in here, now this is open. We can go in this direction here. Pick up some armor bonuses. Ooh, another door that's bleeding on the other side of it. Oh, that's not really meant to be a trap, just meant to kind of keep you off your guard. If you hit this switch, it opens up here. I didn't probably get a good view of it, but there was actually what those red bars look like. There was a copy of that right here, just to kind of give a reinforcement of what that switch did. But it was important to me that you can see what the switch opens when you hit the switch, to avoid any kind of confusion for people. This door opens with the switch too, just to kind of transform the map a little bit, just make things look a little bit like, oh, this place doesn't want you to be here. You know, it's like waking up to your presence. It's aware that you are moving through its walls now. So we're going to grab the blue key. If you didn't expect a trap, you probably haven't played that much Doom. And again, just another fight to kind of work really well if you have the chain gun. If you have the shotgun, you know, fighting a bunch of specters is not all that much fun when they kind of ambush you. But the chain gun works really well in a situation like that. So I wanted to make sure I designed an encounter that took advantage of the weapon that I anticipated the player to be most likely to have. It also works if you have the chain gun. I mean, excuse me, the chainsaw or the berserk. But the intent is that the player has the chain gun. So, like any good little puzzle room, You can't leave until you have the blue key, and that's mostly just to make sure the player doesn't accidentally leave the area without picking the key up first. Nobody really wants to spend a whole lot of time in the map backtracking over and over again, looking for things that they missed. So it was very important to me that it was hard to make something progression-wise happen in the map without the player understanding that they did it. There's a mistake that I made on that we'll discover a little bit later. But for now, I think I accomplished it pretty well here. Another trap. This trap took several balancing passes. There was a few times where it had just a shit ton more enemies than it does here. And I had to kind of be mindful of, again, the fact that the player may not have gone through the other parts of the map, may or may not have had health and armor available. It was hard to get it balanced. So here we go. This is how you get out of that area. It takes you back up to that little utility room. The whole thing is just supposed to feel like you are making this sort of unnatural path through the map by means that were not intended to do so. So just anticipating that, again, this pipe, you would not be an accessible way down into that part of the base if the sides of the pipe weren't corroded away, but they were. So it makes a good path through there for the player that needs to go find that key to progress. To escape through there, they go through another little utility hall up into this area that's, for some sort of maintenance or monitoring that you wouldn't normally need to access from here, and you jump back down in this direction. So the only place we haven't gone is now the place where the blue bars were opened up from the big computer room. And you can see this is how you tie these areas together. If you open this door here, now we're back to where we were near the start. So the whole thing is just supposed to be a very big circuit, give the player a few options on where to go. It was very important to me that that was possible. And that was because that it was a spiritual homage to my first snap map, which was, it was called Harm. And Harm is the name of the project that I intended this map to be a part of. That did not pan out. You have noticed this switch right here probably. These are bars right up here, and these bars are tied to the same sector tag as the bars over in this part of the map. And so the whole point is just that depending on which direction you're coming from, there's a few possible ways that the player could get trapped and accidentally soft lock. So there are several switches that allow the player to get through this area. It does have the unfortunate circumstance of giving the player several mystery switches that they are unlikely to know what they ever did or why they existed. So there's probably a more articulate way to do that. Now let's do something here real fast. I'm going to turn this MIDI down just a tib. I'm sure it's getting a little bit obnoxious. So now we need to go this way. I think this room is a bit of an exercise in making things superfluous. There's no reason that this room needs to be the way that it is. You cannot go through this door. Why is that? It's because it has to be opened by a switch. Why does it need to be opened by a switch? Because I just wanted to make sure the player had to go through this room. And where I'm going with this is that it's okay to make rooms that are a bit superfluous or don't add anything to the progression. There's no... It's not wrong to make a room not be mandatory. And I made that mistake. This room could have been perfectly fine without having the switch in it. And just, the player can come through here and collect some shotguns and some other stuff. There's no reason that they needed to go down here to open this door. None whatsoever. One of the most poignant comments I received on this map was that there's just way too many switches. And I actually agree. It's just too many switches. It doesn't make sense. This texture is different because I did not understand how to do upper unpegged or lower unpegged. Even though it's right there, I just didn't understand what it was for, and so I couldn't figure out how you're supposed to get textures to line up, and so I just made it a different texture. What are we anticipating here? Bets on it being a trap? Oh yes, it's a trap. Very benign trap. Anybody can beat this trap. It's not a great one. It was supposed to be a bit of a surprise. Not necessarily too difficult, but it more just ends up wasting the player's time, doesn't it? So here's a cool little outside area, and it was also very important for me to all the outside areas that they were connected to each other. This took several times to kind of iterate properly. I probably spent a few hours listening to podcasts, figuring out how to detail this properly and do what I wanted to do. I did a lot of reiterating. Ultimately, I wanted it to look like a dam, or like they were building the base up and reinforcing against this rock formation. I imagine this map probably takes place like in the mountains, maybe, because it certainly looks that way to me. But you'll see the soul sphere out here. It's possible to jump to get that soul sphere. But I am a big fan of secrets that the player can see but doesn't have any idea of how to get to. And then, of course, the source of all the poison in the map, this early part of the map is, I guess, kind of responsible for processing, is from the building here that the player will eventually be going to. So here's something interesting. Super shotgun. I want to make sure the player picks it up. I want to make sure the player cannot skip the super shotgun. Can't go through this door here. This is very obviously a trap. What else would it be? So you pick the super shotgun up. You're going to ambushed by imps. I'm pretty sure I went through several things. At one point, these were chain gunners. That was not a lot of fun. The imps was the best way to do it. Now you'll see here there is a switch you can shoot to let you out, and when you do, it changes to phase 2 of the fight. So even though I don't necessarily like distinct arenas, that's what this one ended up being. But I wanted to make sure the player was guaranteed to pick the super shotgun up. There was zero chance they can miss it and beat the map. Now here's something interesting. If you are familiar with mapping in Boom, then you wouldn't necessarily make a trap that does this. Why did this happen? Well, because the super shotgun is up on a pedestal, it's very possible that the player could disarm this trap by walking around and picking it up from the back if the only thing I had done was make this line def right here that the crosshair on the super shotgun is crossing over, if that was the only one that triggered closing the door. So you have to anticipate that the player can cross this line def, or also cross this line def. In vanilla mapping, that's just the kind of beginning and end of it. That means that it's possible to trigger the line def up to the trap up to 4 times. And so you have to make sure that this switch shootable is repeatable. If it's only shootable once, it's possible to soft lock you in here. Now, if you're boom mapping, this is something that I discovered by dissecting Valiant's map made by Skillsaw, 11 Angrier Archviles, where a very similar trap is sprung in terms of you cross into a central podium type of area, and the podium has multiple sides. I was thinking, how is it possible to only trigger this trap once? And the answer is voodoo dolls. You have any one of these 4 line defs is responsible for opening a door that blocks a voodoo doll. The voodoo doll is on a conveyor belt floor. When the voodoo doll is allowed to slide down the conveyor belt floor because the door in front of it opens up, it will eventually cross a line def that will trigger the trap. It's possible to make it so that it only crosses the line def one time only, and that line def is what closes this door behind you. So it's possible to make the trap so that it only happens one time, but I didn't know that. So the final part of this is, like most mappers do, when you have a trap like that, you hide the button to leave the room inside the trap. This is how you finally get in here. So now we're in this like little science research area. I wanted this little like side little like power grid utility area. This is an optional combat piece. You do not have to hit that switch, which means you can beat the map without fighting these monsters. But if you do, you get some resupply. It also serves another purpose. It turns the power on in this room here. And by turning the power on in this room here, you can go in, not this one, it doesn't take you anywhere, but this teleporter here, oh gosh, we're in the secret, scary hell place. So I wanted this cool little like flesh thing. And just to kind of take you into this weird little like hell excursion. You can imagine the science team, very like Half-Life style, going in there, taking samples, coming back. You'll see that lift kind of lowered down. That was something that I wanted to make kind of interesting. Pick up the soul sphere. Now you can escape back to where you came from. A lot of players missed this secret when I watched the playthroughs of it. Alright, here is the next big set piece of the map. The player gets locked in this room. You cannot leave. It was very important to me that happens. Oh boy. I'm gonna dissect the logic behind that trap here in a minute. But this is probably one of the trickiest fights I've ever put together that was also fun. So I'm going to switch to my rocket launcher because I have it, but you get the rocket launcher in this room if you have not already found it, but it is very possible to get significant way through this fight without realizing that the rocket launcher is here. And you can see there is no way to do this fight without engaging in a good degree of mobility. You need to be moving around. This fight took many iterations of playtesting to get right. Both tweaking the layout of the room so that it was possible to make various ways of circuit surrounding it, various ways to break the line of sight to deal with the hit scanners or funnel enemies around them, and the mix of the monsters themselves so that there's an interesting fight that actually happens. Ultimately, I just wanted to give the player several different circuits that they could possibly make to give them different paths to kind of deal with the onslaught of monsters. And you can see we upped the killed monster count pretty substantially by finishing that fight there. So this is one of my visual set pieces, I feel like, for this map. This circular window with the circular computer. I think this ended up being a different shape when I first made it. And then I was like, ooh, you know what? It should be a circle. That'd be really cool. This mega armor here, it's really hard to get in the fight, but I wanted it to be possible. It was also important to me that this room was not perfectly symmetrical. It's symmetrical in the broad sense, but in the specific details, it was very important to me that this side of the room was not an exact copy of the other side of the room. What that results in is that each side of the room has a different purpose, too. That switch that I just hit is mandatory for progression. It raises these stairs here. But this one allows you to get the mega armor. It's not a secret. It's out in the open. It's just if you're observant. You go in this room. This is where you get the rocket launcher. And I wanted to make sure that it was possible to see the rocket launcher through here. I'd say the mileage varies on that. I also, made the thing spinning and made it flashing in a bright light just to kind of make it a little bit easier to see. This room, bit plain on the texturing. Some of what I felt constrained by is the stock Doom textures, because this is all stock Doom 2 textures if you hadn't guessed. But also just my noviceness at texturing. What we have here is a hit point door, just to prevent the player from getting in here too quickly. And one thing you may have realized is that that should be a gap, because it is on this side. And it is if you do this. So this is a line def that lowers it. There's one on each side. When you come up here, there's a line def that raises it. That's how we split the difference with Doom not having rooms over rooms. This is supposed to be like a little hell office, like you finally get to the back of like the administration, or maybe where like the big bosses work, and you realize there's all this like hell stuff in here. It's like, oh, the UAC was already working with the demons, or they were already corrupted by the demons. What is this going on here? Well, this is about to be something. Basically what's going on here is these banners match banners next to a door that we didn't open earlier. You hit that and these raise up. Gives you a little bit of a hint that those were raised. But we can't leave this room until we hit that second, another switch. The arch file is there to kind of, A, start resurrecting some of the monsters you kill, because I kind of like that. But also B, to just let the player know that they need to go back the way that they came now. Same thing with these arachnotrons. So now we can leave, except we can't. We need to hit that other switch. Why did I do it that way? I didn't really have a good reason for it. I'm pretty sure it was because I wanted both of these rooms to have a purpose, but that's not necessary. Now you see that this is raised up. There's probably more efficient ways to accomplish this. It definitely leads to players having a little bit of confusion about switches or just fatigue from hitting so many damn switches. The other thing that is a problem with the way that this is laid out is that that switch that opens the main progression, the banners, the doors with the banners next to them, is very far away, relatively speaking, from the switch, from the door that it opens. So it's very easy for the player to flip that switch and have no idea what they did. That's something we should have left behind in 90s Doom mapping, not brought with us into the modern century. At the very least, there's a few new monsters that are in the area when the player gets back. This little thing opens up into a little like hell cabinet. I always like that there are pieces of corruption of the base hidden in the base or behind the walls of the base that you unveil later. This Mancubus. This trap didn't end up being that difficult or that dangerous. I never managed to figure out a way to make it that dangerous. But now this is opened up, and finally we can raise the bridge. But before we do that, we're going to spawn a pretty decent trap. We got some revenants that are taking pot shots at us, and a pain elemental, and some cacos. Not a very dangerous trap, but it will give most people at least cause to perk up and see what's going on. Unfortunately, you know, this is a bit of a grindy type of fight. There's not really a whole lot here that makes it that exciting. You are pretty much no risk of getting trapped by anything. There's nothing that keeps you in this room. And the revenants, as long as you stick to the walls, they don't really do a whole lot to you. But it was mostly just to kind of give the player a bit of a reason to have to jump down. Go, oh crap. I don't recall if I have ammo anywhere. I made this here just in case. It's definitely possible to jump off without hitting the switch, and then you have to run all the way around, and a lot of players do that when they panic. This is where you find the final secret. It might take me a minute to get to it. It's not easy. Oh, there's a missing texture there. Huh. We're just going to use no clip if I don't make it this time. It is possible to do it, and it takes us here. That's where you can get the final secret. And now we're pretty geared up to get close to the end. So as you can see when we get here, that was kind of a cool little trick to just, like, the lights come on. It knows you're home. Again, this whole area is just supposed to feel like this cold, calculating, impenetrable type of building that is, you're not meant to be here. I want the player to feel like they don't belong here. And another trap is sprung. This one, I didn't really accomplish what I wanted with it. The cacos just kind of pop out. The Mancubus was supposed to kind of put pressure on you from the rear, although, you know, at least in this type of layout, he doesn't really serve that purpose very well. Oh, that is ugly. Wish I would have done better on that. Oops. He's pretty easy to defeat. The chain gunners are probably one of the most dangerous parts of this whole trap. And then, of course, another door with hit points. So this is supposed to kind of emulate a little security checkpoint office. You can imagine a security guard in here. That is a 2-stage switch. I don't think I really understood that you could make the door open with a key press that's locked by the blue key. And so it requires 2 presses. One, because you need the blue key, and then once you have the blue key, you know, open the little tiny door. The switch opens the door into this base itself. This one was another one that took me many iterations to do what I wanted to. And there's a reason for that. It's because this is about to change. Again, it's very important to me that this area had a flow to it, but it was not a symmetrical flow. I did not want it to be possible to just run loops around this. I wanted the player to have to make decisions about where they actually go. I also, in this map, was, of course, a big fan of just making supplies and doors and little platforms accessible after hitting switches. You could make the ammo just down there, but it's more fun to do it this way and then have the revenants spawn in. So the player is going to realize when they walk in this room, they're given some options. They can go straight. It doesn't really look like it can go anywhere. Hopefully that's pretty apparent when they start. I think the player is going to want to go to the high ground. I feel like it's pretty natural to try to want to go to high ground when you're playing a game like Doom. So the player hopefully quickly realizes they can get there by going around this way. But I'm hoping the player starts to wonder why they're getting so much ammo. So that door opens up to ambush the players. The reason behind that is because it was very easy for those chain gunners to just kind of get woken up and wander around, and I wanted them to be here to ambush you when you get up to the top of the stairs. So now where are we going? Well, we're hearing monsters have woke up. It sounds like they're pretty close. None of these computers do anything. I guess we'll try to go through this door here. It doesn't look like it will work. And the whole base transforms, and this is where shit hits the fan. Oh, I'm about to fail my own map. Yeah, I feel like that was a bit of a risky move, but I did it anyways, and I paid the price. Monsters start spawning in just to flood the base. I wanted to make sure there was lots of hit scanners kind of running around and threatening you. I probably had shotgunners at some point and realized that the former humans work best. Now, one major thing that I wanted to accomplish was to make sure that the player dealt with most of the monsters in this area before they tried to progress. I did not want the player to be able to skip this fight. It's still possible, but it's not easy to do if you don't know what you're doing. Now, I guess one thing you could say is that this is technically a bit of an arena. You're locked in here, and there's multi-stages to it. But I do feel like this is a bit of an organic way of doing it. It doesn't feel like you're just trapped in a square room and you've got this fight that you're expected to do. I feel like it does feel more of a natural, organic type of space. It serves an actual real purpose in the world, except besides to just exist as an arena in this game. That's what I was going for, is this to feel like a very actual, believable place. So, I know Doom is kind of known for being relatively abstract, but in this case I didn't really want it to be that way. I wanted this map to have a purpose. That chain gunner is just there to tell you that you can go up here and hopefully draw your attention to it. So, there's a couple of things you can do from this point. We can go this way, where I died a minute ago. Hit this switch. Raise half of a bridge that you need to get you to where that chain gunner was. If you go this way, you get ambushed by some pinkies, just to keep things a little lively. Hit this switch. We raise the platform to the other half. And now we can go through. I took a lot of time to try to detail this area. I wanted to really make it look like it was just consumed from from the inside out by the hell corruption. That's why there's flesh and blood everywhere. I love putting lots of flesh and blood in Doom. Don't call the cops. That's not what it means. Some hell corruption. Just, I like it when it's just looks almost wounded itself. I don't know what this is. It's just, I probably just ran out of design ideas. I was like, okay, this is what it's going to look like. It took a lot of tries to figure out how to make this look reasonably organic and grown over. I wanted to make sure that the flesh textures were bleeding, different pools all over the place, while still looking like there was stuff back here. So some corrupted, grown over things, some machinery that's more or less useless, and then a claustrophobic little scrawl through this fleshy area. I like that the switch is halfway obscured, and then of course the flesh that's kind of in the way, and the elevator is not a perfect size anymore. This is probably one of the lamest things in the map. This was a little trap that I just don't really think I designed very well. I was suffering from a bit of... Wow, I wasn't expecting that. I was suffering from a bit of fatigue by the time I got to this point in the map, so... The Archie pops up from a little lift trap. You can just basically do this to kill him. He's not very hard to beat at all. And the red key, which you need to beat the map. Again, another instance of making sure that you pick the key up before you leave. This is just supposed to look like the part of the base is getting corrupted by hell, so the stairs being replaced by the marble texture, the flesh everywhere, the brick basically converting. It's kind of like how the corruption spreads in Terraria. It just basically slowly converts everything into the hell version of it. So that's kind of what's going on here. The base is more or less corrupted over, but not enough until we can, at least we can get the red key from it. And then a little teleporter that looks like very similar to the ones earlier. I just liked the idea of making a circular door, and that texture actually looks pretty good when it's made on a round door. So the only way out is through. That's what they tell you when you get to the shores of hell in Doom. So we're gonna have to take a final brief excursion into hell before we can get back to where we need to be. So just a little jumping puzzle just to make it exciting to kind of navigate through this area. There's not really a whole lot else to it. Just mostly damaging floors and, you know, some cracks and stuff like I designed. Some torture chambers. You know, no mistake of where we are. And this is supposed to be just like a forward outpost. This is like a research station. So you can very much believe that the UAC is up here conducting experiments in hell and taking samples home and stuff. A little portable power generator, probably powered by hell energy. A teleporter that doesn't work, but thank Christ, one that does. And the nice thing is, it takes you right back to the beginning of the map where you need the red key. No backtracking, and a very, very lame Doom 1 style exit switch. The reason is because I had planned to make this into something else when the next map was ready, and I never did that or came back and updated it. So what we're left with is basically just a very basic switch. So there you have it. That's my first map, Malleable Intent. I learned quite a few lessons from it. First and foremost, make a MIDI or select a MIDI that's appropriate for the length of your map. Don't pick a hard rock map MIDI that you're going to listen to for 35 minutes. It's going to get really annoying. Most people are going to want to turn it off. You're going to have to split the difference. 2, think about your thing placement while you're designing the room, not right after you're done. You can get a lot more mileage out of it if you do it that way. It's a lot harder to do it that way, but allow yourself some flexibility. 3, I don't know. There's several other lessons learned sprinkled throughout that, but I'm going to stop with this one. Thank you very much for watching. If you would like to do a mapping diary. Maybe we can chat on Discord and I can play through a map of yours and we can talk about the design process. Let me know. I'd be interested in doing that. Otherwise, I'll continue doing this with my maps until I run out of them, which won't take that long. Thank you for watching. If you have a map that you would like me to play, to review, or do a blind playthrough, send me a message on Doom World or leave a comment below. And if you found this interesting and or helpful to you in your mapping progress or journey, then let me know. I'm interested in knowing what kind of content is interesting to people. So that's it for me. Thank you again for watching and take care.